Welcome to Technically You, the podcast that unpacks the technology shaping our connected world.
Today, we're diving into something that sounds incredibly bureaucratic, but is actually crucial for anyone working with sensitive data, FIPS 140-3.
FIPS 140-3. That's quite a mouthful. Before we lose everyone, can you explain what we're actually talking about?
Okay, FIPS stands for Federal Information Processing Standards. 140-3 is the third version of a specific standard that defines security requirements for cryptographic modules.
Okay, still pretty technical. Talk to us like we are fifth graders?
Okay, students, it's the gold standard for cryptography. If you're encrypting data, whether it's passwords, financial transactions, classified information, FIPS 140-3 tells you exactly how strong that encryption needs to be and how to implement it correctly.
So it's like a seal of approval for encryption?
Exactly. It's a certification that says this cryptographic module has been tested and meets rigorous security requirements. If you see FIPS 140-3 validated on a product, you know it's been thoroughly vetted.
And the government requires this?
The U.S. federal government absolutely requires it for any system handling sensitive but unclassified information. But it's become the de facto standard well beyond government. Healthcare, finance, critical infrastructure all look for FIPS validation.
So this affects way more than just government agencies?
Way more. And that's why we need to talk about it. Whether you're in healthcare protecting patient data, finance securing transactions, or tech building products for enterprise customers, FIPS 140-3 is probably relevant to you.
All right, let's break this down from the beginning. What exactly is FIPS 140-3 and how did we get here? FIPS
S140-3 is a U.S. government standard published by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It specifies security requirements for cryptographic modules used to protect sensitive information.
You said this is version 3. What happened to versions 1 and 2?
Good catch. This means you are paying attention. FIPS 140-1 was the original, published in 1994. FIPS 140-2 came out in 2001 and became the dominant standard for 2 decades. FIPS 140-3 is the current version, finalized in 2019 with a transition period that's still ongoing.
Wait, finalized in 2019? That's 6 years ago and we're still transitioning?
Cryptography standards move slowly, and for good reason. You can't just flip a switch on systems protecting critical infrastructure or classified data. There's been a phased transition with deadlines extending into 2025 and beyond.
So what's actually in this standard? What does it require?
FIPS 140-3 defines requirements across 11 different areas: cryptographic module specification, ports and interfaces, roles and authentication, finite state model, physical security, operational environment, and several others.
That sounds comprehensive. What's the core idea?
The core idea is defense in depth. It's not enough for your encryption algorithm to be mathematically sound. The entire cryptographic module, the hardware, software, firmware, everything, must be designed, implemented, and tested to prevent attacks.
What's a cryptographic module exactly?
It could be a hardware device like a hardware security module or HSM, a software library that performs encryption, or even a complete system. Basically, any component that performs cryptographic operations, encryption, decryption, key generation, digital signatures.
And FIPS 140-3 tells you how to build those securely?
More precisely, it tells you what security properties they must have and how to test for them. Then independent labs, accredited by NIST, actually test products to verify they meet the requirements.
So companies can't just claim to be FIPS compliant?
Absolutely not. You have to go through a formal validation process. It's rigorous, expensive, and time-consuming, often taking 12 to 18 months or longer, but that's what makes the certification meaningful.
I've heard FIPS has different security levels. Can you explain those?
Yes. FIPS 140-3 defines 4 security levels, creatively named Level 1 through Level 4. Each level builds on the previous one with increasingly stringent requirements.
Start with level 1. What's that about?
Level 1 is the baseline. It requires that you use approved cryptographic algorithms and that the software operates correctly. But it doesn't require physical security measures. It could be software running on a general-purpose computer.
So it's just about using good encryption algorithms?
Essentially, yes. It's appropriate for low-security applications where physical security isn't a concern. Many commercial software products target level 1 because it's the most accessible.
What about level 2?
Level 2 adds physical security requirements. The module must have tamper-evident features, seals, coatings, or mechanisms that show if someone tried to physically access the internals.
Like those warranty stickers that say, void if removed?
Similar concept, but more robust. Level 2 also requires role-based authentication. Different users or processes must have different access levels within the module.
When would you need level 2?
When physical access is a realistic threat, think ATMS, point-of-sale systems, network equipment in semi-secure locations. You want to know if someone tampered with the device.
And level 3?
Level 3 is where it gets serious. It requires tamper-resistant physical security, not just evidence of tampering, but active resistance to it. The module must detect and respond to physical attacks.
How does that work?
Techniques include sensors that detect drilling, temperature changes, voltage fluctuations. If tampering is detected, the module must zeroize, immediately erase all sensitive data, including cryptographic keys.
So it self-destructs the sensitive data if attacked?
Exactly. Level 3 also requires identity-based authentication, not just roles, but individual authentication. And it must provide physical separation between ports where sensitive data enters, checks unites, and other interfaces.
Who needs level 3?
High-security applications, government agencies handling classified information, financial systems processing large transactions, critical infrastructure. Anywhere physical security is paramount.
And level 4 is even more extreme?
Level 4 is the highest security level. It protects against sophisticated physical attacks, even environmental manipulation attempts. The module must have environmental failure protection and testing.
What does that mean practically?
The module must operate securely across extreme temperature ranges, voltage fluctuations, electromagnetic interference. It must resist side-channel attacks, where attackers analyze power consumption, electromagnetic emissions, or timing to extract secrets.
That sounds incredibly difficult to achieve.
It is. Level 4 certifications are rare and expensive. They're typically reserved for the most sensitive applications, protecting nuclear secrets, top-level government communications, critical military systems.
So most commercial products are level 1 or 2?
Exactly. Level 3 for high-security enterprise and government applications. Level 4 is relatively uncommon outside of specialized defense and intelligence use cases.
So why does the U.S. government mandate FIPS 140-3? What's driving this requirement?
It comes down to trust and standardization. The government handles massive amounts of sensitive data, everything from tax records to classified intelligence. They need assurance that the cryptography protecting that data is sound.
Can't they just trust that vendors are using good encryption?
History says no. There have been numerous cases of weak, flawed, or backdoored cryptography, sometimes by accident, sometimes intentionally. The government can't afford to take vendors' word for it.
So FIPS provides verified security?
Exactly. Independent testing by accredited labs means the government doesn't have to trust vendor claims. They have documented evidence that cryptographic modules meet specific security requirements.
Is this legally mandated?
Yes, the Federal Information Security Management Act, FISMA, requires federal agencies to use FIPS validated cryptography for protecting sensitive information. It's not optional for government systems.
What about contractors working with the government?
They're bound by the same requirements. If you're building systems for federal agencies or handling government data, FIPS compliance is mandatory. This extends the requirement well beyond direct government.
That must affect a lot of companies.
Millions of workers. Defense contractors, IT service providers, cloud vendors serving government customers, healthcare organizations handling Medicare/Medicaid data. FIPS compliance is a business requirement.
What happens if you don't comply?
You can't do business with the federal government. Systems that don't use FIPS-validated cryptography won't be authorized to operate. Contracts require FIPS compliance, and auditors verify it.
So it's enforced through procurement?
Exactly. If you want to sell to the government, your products better be FIPS validated. This creates strong market incentives for vendors to pursue certification.
Does FIPS actually prevent breaches?
That's the right question to ask. FIPS ensures strong cryptography, but it's not a silver bullet. You can have FIPS-validated encryption and still have security problems. Misconfiguration, weak passwords, software vulnerabilities.
So it's necessary but not sufficient?
Perfect way to put it. FIPS ensures the cryptography itself is sound, but you still need good key management, secure implementation, proper configuration, and all the other elements of a comprehensive security program.
Let's talk practical application. How do organizations actually use FIPS 140-3?
It starts with identifying which systems handle sensitive data. For government agencies, that's pretty much everything. For private sector, it's systems with regulated data, healthcare, financial, personally identifiable information.
Once they've identified those systems,
they need to ensure all cryptographic operations use FIPS-validated modules. This might mean purchasing hardware like HSMs that are FIPS certified or using software libraries that have FIPS validation.
Can you give me a concrete example?
Sure. Let's say you're building a web application that handles sensitive government data. You need FIPS-validated TLS for encrypting communications. That means using a web server or load balancer that's FIPS 140-3 validated.
What about the database storing the data?
Same thing. Use database encryption with FIPS-validated cryptographic modules. Most major database vendors offer FIPS modes or validated versions specifically for this purpose.
Do organizations have to enable FIPS mode?
Yes, many products can operate in FIPS mode or standard mode. FIPS mode restricts the system to using only FIPS-approved algorithms and validated implementations. You have to explicitly enable and configure it.
What changes in FIPS mode?
Older or weaker algorithms get disabled. For example, MD5 and SHA-1 hashing aren't allowed in FIPS mode. Only approved algorithms like SHA-256 and SHA-3 are permitted. Key lengths must meet minimum requirements: 128-bit for symmetric encryption, 2048-bit for RSA.
Does this break compatibility with older systems?
It can. This is a real challenge. If you have legacy systems that only support older protocols or algorithms, they may not work when you enable FIPS mode. Migration planning is critical.
What about cloud services? How does FIPS work there?
Major cloud providers, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, all offer FIPS-validated services and regions. They publish documentation on which services are FIPS compliant and how to configure them correctly.
So you can run FIPS-compliant workloads in the cloud?
Absolutely. In fact, cloud providers invest heavily in FIPS validation because government and regulated industries are huge markets. AWS GovCloud, for example, is specifically designed for FIPS and compliance requirements.
What about mobile devices?
Good question. iOS and Android both support FIPS mode for their cryptographic libraries. Organizations managing government mobile devices enable FIPS mode through mobile device management systems.
Is there a performance impact from using FIPS mode?
Sometimes, but it's usually negligible on modern hardware. FIPS-approved algorithms like AES are actually quite fast. The bigger impact is usually from the validation and testing overhead during development.
We have reached the end of part 1 of Technically Used podcast on FIPS 140-3. Be sure to join us next time when we cover real-world applications, challenges, and limitations, and the future of FIPS 140-3. So, as always, stay secure and stay curious.